Welcome, listeners from around the globe. This is episode 152 of the Brain Software Podcast, coming to you from the Hypnotic World Epicenter, Toronto, Canada. I'm Chris Thompson, the co-founder of Mike Mandel Hypnosis, and today, Mike and I will talk all about assertiveness versus aggression. So stay tuned.
From foul weather journeys and rain through the bones, where listing is fallow, where wood turns to stone, hard granite is crusted and legions lay low, for the king cannot wait for the cartilage to grow, and the wizards of evening must dread the dawn's light. They peep and they mutter from feather to flight, such dersative rumblings in glade, tor and plough. Alone out in Dartmoor we call to them now, until the vast panic brought on by the trance, we leap and we whirl and we dance the veil dance. Queen Mab weaves her curtains, the spider's last pout, and we circle and circle, and then we all shout, we are not witches!
But seriously, folks, whatever happened to that old tranquility we used to know? I mean, seriously. These are days of victory! But enough about me. Let's welcome to the last remaining seat at the cauldron, the man with his index finger on the nuclear trigger of the hypnotic football, the archdeacon of mummery himself, and the last living heir to the mesmeric throne, Mike Mandel.
It's Chris. Oh, and today it's all about assertiveness versus aggression, which you just got a wonderful dose of. You're trying to rip my head off with your kindergarten teacher voice because I didn't know some tech thing you were talking about. Notice my new answer. I don't even care. Like, it's just having no effect.
I know. I love your response. Oh, that's hilarious. Okay, so we are about to have a great podcast, assertiveness versus aggression. We literally just decided the topic yesterday because we'd been running a campaign on Facebook. It's probably those of you listening may see our ads for a really cool video that Mike teaches you about what we call the agree and repeat strategy. And it's in the show notes. If you're looking for the actual video, we're going to be talking all about it here, but make sure you head to our website. You'll find the show notes for episode 152 simply by clicking on the podcast link in the navigation bar of our website. You'll find episode 152. The show notes will take you right to it, and then you'll get all the goodies that we're about to talk about. So where do you want to start, Mike?
I want to start, Chris, with the thing I was talking to you about just before we went live with this, the Guns N' Roses intervention.
I love it.
I like it. I know you've heard it. I like it because it's really strange, and it's when it's said in the right way, like as though you're just nailing some important point. It really puts people's heads in a spin.
And this is context-free humor, right?
So context-free humor, pattern interrupt. So you use this when someone is making a really impassioned point about something that is really interesting and important to them. And you let them finish the point. And then you can even hold your finger up like towards them as though you're really making this clear. And you say to them, you realize that you've just described Axl Rose. And you just wait and say nothing. But it's just fantastic. Even if the person's not into Guns N' Roses, Axl Rose has a familiar name. It's so bizarre. This came out of the Paul Karras intervention I used on PEP years and years ago. But it's the key wording is you realize you've just described Axl Rose.
And the thing is described. Described it doesn't even make a whole lot of sense. In what way have you described him? And what about him have you described? It doesn't make any sense. It leaves the door open to extreme, I want to say vagueness.
Yes.
It's so vague, and there's no context for the person to connect what they were just talking about to what you just said, what you just claimed that they've described. They will be lost.
Right. And I'll just comment with that. The quote Glenn Gould made once, he was playing a particular piece and he played it extremely slowly, nothing remotely like it was written. And the critic said, it's totally arbitrary what you're doing, as is this intervention saying it. And he said, oh, of course. He said, it's completely arbitrary, but I can only explain and say that it works.
Yeah.
So the intervention will work for you. Have fun with it.
All right. So what are people to expect when they drop this intervention on someone?
Well, I think just people looking with bleary eyes and confusion.
And then they're going to ask, well, what do you mean by that?
And then you can always fall back on, I think you know.
Yeah, I think you know. You accuse them. You say that they know. And then when they say, well, but I don't understand. What are you talking about?
Well, then you say, you shouldn't make such a fervent point if you're not willing to deal with where it leads.
Yeah. Or you can say, what are you talking about? We're talking about you.
You.
It's just wonderful. All right,
let's get on with this.
Let's get on with this. This is actually a lot of fun in terms of the being assertive rather than aggressive topic. It does fit in nicely. Do you want to go into, actually, you had written down here a quote that you wanted to share. And of course, we have our think tank words of the day, and then we've got to go right into the topic.
All right. Well, Al Capone gave 2 great quotes. When you're talking about aggression and assertiveness, Capone is terrific. He said, you can get more with a kind word and a gun than you can get with a kind word. Which is clever. But he also said some other darn thing. No idea. We'll stick with that one. That was the one I wanted to make a point of. I know he's known for some.
Well, you know what? It's probably on the tip of your tongue, and it's going to come.
It will. It probably will. I'm at such an advanced stage. You never know where these things go. So here's the think tank words that are supposed to tie in with our assertiveness and aggression thing.
Okay, so the challenge is to take these words that we're about to disclose and discuss and use them just to see if we can get more creative around the topic.
Absolutely. And the first one is vortex.
Ooh. You want to go through them one by one or just read them all?
Then runner, cedar, like the tree or bush or shrub. So what do you get from vortex?
Well, vortex to me, it starts wide and it ends focused. There's a focal point of the vortex, right? There's a point where it gets to one single point. And to me, that's about staying assertive to whatever it is that you actually want. Be very specific.
That sounds good. I'll go with that too, because the whole idea of vortices is they're pulling things into the center.
Oh, yeah.
But they're pulling from a lot of directions. Like, a typhoon or a tornado is a classic vortex.
It's so cool how these words, even though they're random, they can be made to fit. And it seems so perfect when they do.
Yes, it does. And then that leads us to runner.
Well, I guess it depends on what version of the word runner you mean, but I'm thinking about mechanical surface on something running on a surface, like a runner. I'm not even sure mechanically what I'm talking about here, but the idea of guiding something from A to B.
Well, a runner is also something like a rug runner thing that you can put on a surface to protect it.
Yes.
But a runner is also, I'm thinking in terms of somebody who used to run, someone just being a distance runner. And right away, to me, I think not in terms of sprinting, but in terms of the long distance running.
Stamina.
So like marathon running. Yeah. And that leads to, you have your ideas you're going to implement. The whole point is to do it over the long haul. Find the ways of continuing. Because if you look back, buddy, to 10 years ago where we started with this, 10 years has gone in a blink. Imagine if we hadn't done it. We just maintained. We maintained with, me generating awesome content, you yelling at me. And
yes, exactly.
It's all worked.
And you know what else? Runner, the idea of stamina, if you think about it, we're going to get into the agree and repeat strategy in a little while here. It is about having stamina with what you are asserting that you either want or that you're saying no to someone else on. Either way, you're just essentially repeating yourself, which we'll get into, and people will love the strategy, I think. So there we go with runner.
That's good. So let's what are we going to do with cedar? Where do you go with that?
So cedar, interestingly, Mike, I don't know how much construction you've ever done in terms of outdoor decks and things like that, but cedar is one of these woods that is well known for being well protected from aging in the elements. It lasts for a very long time naturally without having to do anything special to it, other than the fact that it will still gray and maybe look older, but you do not need to treat it with oil or anything like that. As opposed to pressure-treated lumber, which even though they pressure-treat it in a factory, it still doesn't last as long as cedar.
Okay, because cedar does have an
the weather
has an oil in it. But cedar is quite fibrous. It's a softwood. And I'm now doing the stepping stone jump. So I'm going from cedar to teak.
Oh.
We have teak furniture in our backyard. Teak is the shipbuilder's wood. You don't have to treat it. You can treat it if you like.
For looks only.
It looks great. And it'll still, like 60 years for teak furniture is nothing. So now I'm seeing what's the right wood for the job. It's about applying the proper substance to whatever you're building, whatever you're designing, that it can not only draw in all the salient points you want to teach, it can run the long distance because you've used the correct content to make it last. So we should always do that. We should tie the three of them together at the end.
I like that. Okay.
Excellent, man. So let's talk about this whole aggression versus assertion. And I've got the other quote now. Al Capone said, "Better to be feared than loved." Now, that's not assertiveness. That's an example.
No, that is
example of aggression. Yeah. Because we're going to get a couple of some terminology here. There is a place for aggression, and we'll get to that later. But mostly,
we don't want anyone to think that we are in support of that quote. We are not saying it is better.
No, not at all.
We're just simply quoting so that we can discuss it.
There's a billion things we can quote. We're not saying. So let's go back to the difference between assertion and aggression. The definitions are: to be assertive is having or showing a confident and forceful personality. Now, if you're
showing confidence or the willingness to be forceful if needed.
But forceful can mean verbally. It doesn't mean physical force.
Right.
And when you are assertive without rapport, you can seem like a jerk.
Yes.
We've all seen the people who want to push in ahead of others in line, who berate waiters and so on. I think anybody who berates a waiter, they will just never be my friend. That's one of my gauges I read years ago. A great way to understand someone you meet is to go to a restaurant and let them order.
Yeah, see how they treat the staff.
How they treat serving staff will tell you much about that person.
Yep, absolutely.
And, serving staff are very hardworking people, and I hate it when people treat them as minions, and my wife hates it too. Yep. So it was in the absence of rapport, you'll seem like a jerk if you're assertive. In the presence of rapport, assertion is a very powerful thing because
it comes off as confident, I think.
Yes. You look at one of our dear friends, Freddie Jacquin, classic example, a man who's extremely assertive, but he has a kindness and he has very strong love and rapport with everybody.
Oh, he's awesome. He would not come across as a jerk to anybody. He's awesome.
And with no weakness at all. I mean, that's the thing. He said sometimes people mistake his kindness for weakness, and it is not. So aggressive, on the other hand, so we've said assertive is having or showing a confident and forceful personality, not physical force. Aggressive, ready or likely to attack or confront. Aggressive to me feels much more hair trigger.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels much more willing to go the distance, like to go up the scale to nuclear weapons right away. Aggressive people are noteworthy for throwing the nuclear weapons very early in an argument or a dispute when they're not necessary. One of the arguments for that kind of personality is when the argument or discussion has gone to nuclear weapons, leave no missiles in your silo.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, fire all those peckers.
It almost seems to me that somebody who moves to aggression too soon, when it isn't warranted, and most of the time it isn't, they are actually not nearly as confident in their argument itself. They're not nearly as prepared or confident.
Now that's interesting, Chris. I hadn't thought of that.
Aggression as a substitute for intelligence and logic and reason and communication skills.
I hadn't thought of that, but that's very interesting because aggression will intimidate many people. It doesn't intimidate you. It doesn't intimidate me at all. It actually, I'll go right up the freaking scale with them as an Enneagram 8 if necessary. But I'd rather not. I'm an Enneagram 8 with a 9 wing, so I'd rather be the grumpy bear and just be left alone. But I think you're right. I think when there is an aggression present for no real reason, it can be a belligerence. I told you years ago when I was a wine writer, still a hypnotist, but when I was a wine writer, got invited to all these wine events. A restaurateur came up to me, a stocky little guy, powerful, physically powerful, and really aggressive. He said, "What do you do? What do you do?" Like this. I said, "I'm a hypnotist and hypnosis trainer." "I can't be hypnotized. My mind is too strong." And it was just a challenge right away.
Yeah.
So
he didn't have rapport at all.
Right. I just said, "Sucks to be you." And just walked away. I didn't bother going there with him because his whole thing was, look how powerful I am, look how strong I am. That was aggression. That was not assertion because he was throwing a shoe at me, wanting me to yelp or come back at him.
Mm-hmm.
We say when you throw a shoe into a pack of wild dogs. Or let's just say
at least it was a borderline. It wasn't necessarily aggressive in that there certainly was no physical aspect to it, or he wasn't specifically inviting you to respond.
Oh no,
but it was definitely past assertiveness.
Right, but I'm saying it was aggressive because I was there at the event with him for the rest of the day, and it was just consistently like trying to just push his agenda. And I think you're right. I think sometimes it can come out of a lack of self-confidence. Mm-hmm. Now, let's remember many podcasts ago, years ago, we talked about the 3 levels of argumentation.
Yes.
And this is important because when we say argumentation, Chris and I don't think we should go and argue with people. We're using it in the classical sense of using logic. Argumentation is logical discussion back and forth in order to determine what the truth is. That's what real argumentation is. It even fits into mathematics as well as logic and so on, and the scientific method. So the first level of argumentation is data. It's like we're talking now. Neither of us are angry. Neither of us are emotions are engaged beyond just a vague friendliness.
Right.
And that's a good place to begin to avoid any kind of aggressiveness.
Yeah, we could pick any hot topic in the news these days. We're still in the middle of the COVID-19 outbreak, and people have a wide variety of emotions all over this topic. However, if we were to stick to actual data points, simple facts, it would be very difficult if both parties stuck to it to rise up the emotional ladder, right?
Well, let's come back to that because that fits neatly here. So level 2 has now moved out of data because the emotions are beginning to get involved. Mm-hmm. And these will not be positive emotions. These will be negative emotions of anger and frustration and this sort of thing, which then causes the adrenal glands to secrete epinephrine, adrenaline.
Right, adrenaline.
And it trickles. Now, an adrenaline trickle is it's like the rust in your body. It's not good for you. Adrenaline should be worked out of your system. It's great for fight, flight, freeze, but you don't want it in your daily conversations just to be stressing your adrenals, which have over 50 purposes, and having adrenaline coming in from the adrenal cortex for no reason. So when you recognize that the emotions are starting to get involved, you'll know because volume starts to go up. Mm-hmm. And people stop listening to each other. They're preparing what they're going to say in their mind, and they start black and white thinking. Right, wrong, no shades of gray whatsoever, certainly not 50 of them. So when you recognize you're at level 2, that's time to take a breath, because if you go to level 3, now aggressiveness will come in full bore. It goes way beyond assertion, because level 3, you are now drenched with frickin' adrenaline. It's like throwing gasoline on a fire. And now we delete what the other person says. I can remember this from my own life when the other person, what they're saying sounds so ridiculously stupid that I'm just angry. I'm not even thinking logically anymore. And in those cases, I'll get aggressive. I'll be violating people's personal space. I'll be leaning into the discussion. Mm-hmm. There'll be much more eye contact and much more frustration. Now, you find that you're running into that. I'm running into that more often with COVID-19 discussions with people. In fact, I've stopped discussing it.
You'll see it happening online all the time, right?
Oh, yeah.
You'll be an observer to many, many, many of these.
Yes, and the point that I'm making is it's so polarized with people. I don't even discuss it with anyone anymore because I'm just sick of arguing about it. I have no particular point of view here that I'm trying to put forward. I'm just saying I've seen people go to level 3 with this faster than anything in living memory.
It's proportional to not necessarily a linear relationship, but it is proportional, I think, to the possible range of outcomes. So in a situation where we have a global pandemic and the worst case scenario is a lot of people die, it's much more likely to cause an emotional reaction from people, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And it's the same kind of things with pretty much any of the major stuff that goes on. If there's a massive financial impact on people or a possible massive health impact on people, that's where the emotions are going to rise much higher, much faster. And so
absolutely,
we have to be very careful about how we debate with people.
Of course. And the interesting thing is there's the whole hormonal thing underlying this as well. There are male and female variants of aggression. And women have been unfairly treated in this regard, that it is, especially in the workplace, like big law firms, ad agencies, and so on, where there's a clear hierarchy that people are jostling for position. There's a lot of inter-office rivalry and so on, even though they're all ostensibly working towards the same goal. Aggression with the male in industries like law and advertising is perceived as a very good trait, but aggression with a female is perceived as something somehow negative. And I think this is a really sad thing.
So how do you recommend people deal with this?
Well, we have to recognize that aggression has its place, but we have to know when to rein it in. And the reason it seems more typical for the male is because it's driven a lot by testosterone.
Yeah, it seemed
And-
almost like, oh well, it's supposed to happen because men have testosterone, even though
right. And you
there's
only
no.
have to look at UFC, and cage fighters are
Mhm,
99.9% men. It's
mhm.
just the way it is. But yeah, so aggression has its place, but sometimes it's perceived as, I don't know, I guess with women, sometimes it's perceived as unfeminine or something like that. Or it's used just as a means to stop them from making a presentation or making a point. Like, oh, stop being so aggressive. So as though it's not okay.
Right. So, yeah, that's a difficult one. How would you recommend women deal with a situation like that? Let's say in the workplace, if they're being faced with coworkers who maybe male coworkers who are being more aggressive, testosterone based, verbal attacks or something. What's the best way to respond?
Well, I would only say the thing I think my wife would say, which is keep it at level one,
Mhm.
data, but don't back down if you're right. It's
Yeah,
like, you're doing nobody any good by backing down if you are right. There's this whole mythology, there's something wrong with truth. And
yeah.
I nearly posted it in our group, but I didn't because it'll start a freaking brush fire.
Mhm.
I nearly posted in my personal Facebook page, telling the truth is not abuse.
Yeah, that's
But
totally true.
even that phrase is going to inflame some people. And,
Yeah.
so yeah, tell the truth. Women, if you're in that position, tell it like it is.
And I think for
Keep it at
everybody,
data.
when you are in a situation, if you keep it at level one and you can agree upon simple things like, how should we evaluate this? What should be the things that we measure to determine what is good
Yes.
and what is bad? Okay, great. Well, as long as we can agree on what to measure, then it doesn't matter how aggressive or assertive somebody becomes. If they're going off the path that you'd agreed towards in terms of what's reasonable and what's measurable and what's a desired outcome,
Right.
you can vortex them back in through intelligent questioning and commentary, right?
Yeah, and then build some
Proper
cedar
use of
furniture.
humor, the Guns N' Roses intervention right there. Right?
Well, yeah,
Pattern
and,
interrupts are a great way to get people back to center.
for sure they are. And I sometimes get fed up when people go up the aggression scale for no reason. My wife's family, not her, but her family, some members, not all of them, some of them are notorious for whenever they start to want to make a point, they just get louder and louder and louder. And finally,
Yeah.
the whole family shouting at each other. Heather said it's because her dad was deaf, which is true, but that's something to do with it.
I think
But if
you're
someone
right.
gets really super aggressive with me and goes to level 3 when there's no reason,
Yeah.
they start taking shots at me. I just always say,
Hmm.
sounds like someone's dealing with some personal issues here. I just
Yeah.
turn it back on them.
Yeah, it's great.
You're not going to fricking throw your fireworks at me.
Yeah,
So,
that is verbal judo. Verbal judo.
Yeah.
Gerbil voodoo.
Gerbil voodoo, yeah.
Verbal voodoo.
So, Chris, so there's nothing wrong with aggression.
Jiu-jitsu.
There's nothing wrong with aggression if it's in context.
Yes,
There's
absolutely.
times you need to be aggressive. I mean, you as a jiu-jitsu practitioner, if you're going to save your family's life in an emergency against some lunatic, you're going to have to be, live or die aggressive. It's just the way it
Oh
is.
yeah, once you know that it's gone aggressive and that it has to go aggressive, you must meet force with force. If you can avoid it and keep it to a verbal discussion and solve the problem that way, that's wonderful. But you better be prepared for all situations.
Right. Remember, I taught at the North American Use of Force Conference. I was teaching words as a force option, which again, above that, you've got wrist compressions, arm locks, pepper spray, taser, lethal, impact weapons, lethal force. You want to stay as low on the hierarchy as you can. Always endeavor to keep it at words if you can.
Absolutely.
It's important. So let's say, what happens in our lives, though, if we're not assertive? So assertive is being able to say what you want, having that confident, forceful personality without crossing the line into intimidation, which aggression often has
That's a good
underlying
point.
it.
Okay, so how can you feel comfortable being assertive, and what happens if you don't? Well, people will walk all over you. You'll feel like you're walking on eggshells. You'll feel like you can't communicate your ideas, right? Because
Right.
telling the truth will be perceived as something wrong to you in that
Mhm.
case. Perhaps guilt or shame will creep in.
And
That
that's
is not-
interesting.
That is
Guilt
not a
or
ticket
shame.
to a good life.
That's interesting because I think it's intriguing that with some personalities, if you are assertive without being aggressive, like with the thing we said about Freddie, people will perceive that kindness as weakness. And you have to have the strength to not react to that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's people who try to push buttons, and sort of the traits that are not assertive that drive me nuts. Passive aggression. Passive aggression is a way of screwing people up instead of dealing with things. And passive aggressives, typically, we've done quite a bit of study on this. They'll do things like forget to give your message to people. Oh, I forgot. Oh, I thought you meant this instead.
Sneakily screw you up, basically, right?
Yeah, and it's a horrible thing. Foot dragging.
Mm-hmm.
I need that absolutely tomorrow morning. Okay, and then 3 days later it's not done. Oh, was it? Did you mean this Tuesday? Passive aggression is terrible. Heather worked in a bookstore, McNally Robinson, in Toronto a number of years ago, and I used to call it. She didn't. I called it passive aggressive central. It was just not the owners. They were lovely people, but some of the staff were just frickin' idiots. And when you get people being aggressive but doing it through not presentations of aggression, but by not giving your message, misunderstanding on purpose. Yeah. That's a horrible trait. It causes frustration all around.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like how you brought up the idea of just plain old aggressive versus passive aggressive, being aggressive by kind of not doing things.
Yeah, that's right. And if you look at people who have no assertion, it can be terrible because a lot of them become doormats. And we see this often with Enneagram type 2. There's so much, great matchers with other people. They want to give other people a good life and be the perfect helper and, come over and clean up your floor from a burst pipe at 3 a.m., even though they live 40 miles away. I mean, 2s are wonderful for that stuff. But the problem is my dear your friend too, Lisa, she'll say, it's too easy to become a doormat if you're not careful.
Yes.
And
we I think come at this from different angles, Mike, because I'm a 9 and I tend to want to always be the nice guy. And from that historical perspective, I often had a difficult time saying no to people because I want to help.
Okay, I never knew you ever had that. Because you don't have it now.
No, I have. Well, probably in the early days of us working together, I still had that a bit, but I have gotten a lot better at learning to say no over the years as I've been an adult. And I've been an adult for a long time now because I'm a pretty old guy, I guess, according to my kids at least. Yeah. My kids told me that I'm too old to do anything cool. I said, I like to do handstands. That's cool.
I like to say no to people. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wasn't very good at saying no a lot of the times. And I would even in my mind tell myself a story. Oh, I can do that. I can juggle all these things that people are asking for. And often when I started becoming more entrepreneurial in my life, of course, with any degree of success, people pitch you on ideas. Oh, here's a cool idea we can work on together, Chris. And I would naturally want to help. But I eventually had to get to the point where it's very clear telling people, that sounds like a great idea, and I'd be happy to discuss it with you and point you in the right direction, but I won't be involved in it.
Right.
I just want to make sure you're clear on that now.
You develop some assertive skills, and that's important. Without taking it personally, without feeling bad. We have a dear friend, Paul. He cannot say no to anybody.
Yeah,
he cannot. He's the first to admit it, and he would rather have horrible things happen in his life because he didn't say no. There was one summer years and years ago, back when people had handheld video cameras. Paul had no assertion, no assertive ability. And he did a favor for a friend and filmed their wedding.
Oh, you talked about this once.
It meant he had to be there all freaking day and set up tripods and stuff on his day off, like a Saturday.
Yeah, and he didn't want to do it.
He got booked. People would say, oh, here you do wedding videos. They weren't even paying him. And he wound up one summer, he will verify this, every single weekend of the summer, he was booked to do a wedding video. I said, Paul, just say these words. I don't record wedding videos. I don't do them. Oh, well, so-and-so said you did it. I'm sure they did, but I don't do it.
Yeah.
He said, I just can't say no. I can't say no. So he would rather be furious at having to go there. That feeling was better than the feeling he got when he said no.
The guilty feeling of not doing it. Okay, let's hold off on that for a second because I want to come back. I really think that would be a great time for us to move into teaching the agree and repeat strategy and talking about it a bit. But let's just close the loop on this. So were you ever not assertive in your life?
Definitely, Chris. And
talk about that.
Well, because I have a very strong 9 wing. And so the 8 with the 7 wing is the monkey mind, driven in a million directions, really powerful going forward. The 8 with the 9 wing, to my mind, is preferable. I have the strength of the 8, but it's tempered by the 9 wing, which makes me more agreeable, less interventional.
The one who wants to be that peacemaker.
Yeah. So I grew up that way. As a small bullied kid, I found it very difficult to be assertive, because when I was assertive, I got beaten up.
Yeah.
And I developed that over time. So now it's no longer a problem. But I developed assertiveness. It is a learned trait, isn't it? I mean, that's our next point.
Yeah,
is it a learned trait? Yes.
You just said something that makes me think the following. I think we both probably have a bit of a history in this. Being the skinny little kids who I always wanted to be a stronger, bigger kid, more muscular. I started lifting weights when I was like 13 years old because I wanted to be big and muscular. Now, I never will be really a big muscle guy. I'm fit, but I'm never going to be a huge guy. But I wanted that because I thought that it would make me stronger and more likable, and I thought I'd have more friends as a result of it. I wanted to be seen as important and, and strong and not little weak kid.
Right.
Does that make sense? So,
I did the same thing.
By being agreeable,
martial arts.
by being the guy who said yes to people, I probably thought that would make people like me more.
And it's interesting. My wife has spelled this out many times. She said, I hate to generalize, so I'm only a messenger. I'm only telling you what she told me. So she said, women are drawn to the bad boys. They always are, because bad boys are strong. They're confident. Now, you don't want a bad boy like Al Capone who kills people. But if you're too much of a nice guy, too much of it,
you're seen as a pushover.
And it's the way it is. Heather said she was able to push over every guy she went out with until we met and got married eventually. And we have really good discussions because she's smart and she's assertive, and she'll say what she means. And
and the ability to smile and say no think about that. Smile, you're friendly, but you're saying no. It's
that's
an important skill. Now let's teach it, because
although you'll also see
that
with passive aggression, it's called the angry smile.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't mean a smile in an annoying way. Just that would be wonderful, wouldn't it? And
So tell me, go ahead and teach it. I'm going to listen to this.
All right. I'll go through it first. And this is the agree and repeat strategy. Do you want to go with the alternate naming that you can use as well? No? Okay, fine. So we'll stick it simple. Agree and repeat. It is so simple. Mike, you taught us this when I was a university student. I believe it was my second year, and it was 1993 in Ottawa. And I'm pretty sure that was the very first time that you came out and you did your brain software seminar to the university circuit. You'd also probably been doing the corporate circuit. And it was so much fun. And I remember this as the standout technique out of the many things you taught in 2 hours, which prompted me to want to learn neurolinguistic programming, hypnosis, and more. But immediately, this was something that I could take away and start using, and it's always served me well. It is so freaking powerful. So I'm excited that we're actually talking about this.
And it's a strategy. It's a pattern. It's brain software. It's a pattern you can run.
It is
that will stop people overwhelming you. You won't be doing things you don't want to do anymore. You won't be guilted into stuff, and it's real simple.
Okay, so it is a simple strategy that involves, number one, you must know your desired outcome. And that's kind of true in so many different areas of life. You have to know what you want, right? So let's say in this case, it is our friend Paul, and he wants his weekend to himself. That's what he wants, not what he doesn't want, what he does want. I want my weekend to myself. So Buddy Boy comes up and says, "Hey, Paul, I hear you do weddings. You think you can film ours in 3 weeks?" Well, he knows his outcome is he doesn't want to film it. So you simply state your desired outcome. And you say, "Well, I don't shoot weddings anymore," or "I don't shoot."
I stopped filming weddings.
Stopped. Yeah, just answer the question. State, "I don't shoot weddings, so I'm unable to shoot your wedding."
Now, it doesn't have to be that long.
Yeah, just I don't shoot weddings.
Yep.
And we'll boil this down in a moment with understood, right? We'll get there because that's your refinement that you taught me. I love it.
Thank you.
So what's going to happen now? The guilt. Well, I don't have anyone else to shoot my wedding. And, Billy told me that you shoot weddings and that you shot his. So I was really counting on you.
And you say,
the guilt, right?
Yeah. And you say,
your
yes,
response,
I did shoot his wedding, but I don't do them anymore.
Yeah, you agree and you restate your response, your outcome.
Agree with whatever they say in principle, and then direct them back to your outcome.
So, I thought I could count on you. So-and-so said that you've understood, or I know he told you that, and that is true, or it's true. I did film his.
Or I know how you feel.
Yeah, I know how you feel can be very vague. Anything you want, any variation, but I don't shoot weddings anymore.
Well, Done. This is a real pain in the ass for me. What am I going to do? You don't answer the question. I know how you feel.
I know how you feel,
but I don't shoot
weddings anymore. Now, if you want, you can say, I know how you feel, and I don't shoot weddings anymore, and can refer you to some others who do, that you can be more helpful if you want to. But that's fine. You've got to stick with the agree in principle with what the person's saying and repeat your response.
And don't answer questions. They will get you to get out of your program by asking you questions.
Well, what am I supposed to do about this? Look, I know that this is a real hassle for you. I don't shoot weddings.
Yeah, there you go. And it's ridiculously powerful. Remember Neil Strauss, a friend of mine, a New York Times bestselling author, his Society International, they had a guy online after I taught this, and he was posting even a couple of years ago how much money he'd saved using this.
Yeah.
And it was in the tens of thousands of dollars, Chris. Just by using this one technique.
We've had so many of his students come and take the architecture of hypnosis as well and report that they've used this, because Neil Strauss, his mastermind, I think it was called the Society International. So his group, so many people would come in and they would all have learned this technique because you taught it to them. And I remember one fellow, Bruno, who came in, I believe he was from Edmonton, and he had saved his ex-wife thousands of dollars on a scammy a used car salesman type of deal. All kinds of ways of saving money. So let's actually get to the other angle then, because one is you can say no. You can use this to be assertive in saying no, and that's really important. But the other thing is you can reverse it, and you can use this to get what you want. Please be ethical about it. So for example, if a company is, in your opinion, mistreating you with customer service, or maybe they charged you too much and you feel like you've been ripped off, or they sold you something that's crap and you want your money back and they're not giving you a refund. That's a great example. You simply state what you want, and when they say no to you, you agree in principle and repeat.
Right. I had difficulties with my phone service, my mobile phone. Right. And I called the company. They went through a thing where they gave out 10 gig a month. It was a special promo. And sometimes it won't work. I did this about 1,000 times. They still wouldn't budge. The guy was smart and he knew what I was doing. But shortly thereafter, I had some issue with them. I got on the phone with them, and now I have 23 gig a month. Yeah, so it does work most of the time. And I don't mean 51%. I mean 99% of the time. If you're just persistent, one more time,
Mike, I'm pretty sure I was with you. This was in Las Vegas. We had just landed. You got on the phone, and then you even though you had signed up for the Roam Like You're at Home plan kind of thing, or whatever it is.
Yes.
You started, and for those of you who are not Canadian listening to this, just appreciate that it would normally have cost a fortune. It would normally cost a fortune to roam in the United States. But now all the Canadian telephone companies have implemented a new thing where you pay like $8 a day or something.
Yeah.
So for whenever you're in the United States, it's a $8 a day flat rate, and it's great. It's called Roam Like Home or something.
And you have exactly what you'd have at home, the same data, all of that.
And so you had signed up for that, verified that it was installed and ready to go on your account, as it always has been whenever we've traveled. And you got there, you made one phone call to your wife to say, we landed, we're here in Las Vegas. And then you got a text message, an automated message from your phone company saying that you were like 90%.
$45 they just charged me.
So, something insane.
And then a few minutes later, they charged me like another 28. And
so
we were getting the luggage. That's right.
For our luggage, and you used this technique to basically get them to fix their problem.
They fixed it, and I wound up with 23 gig. It's powerful. But you know what, buddy? We're at about the 40-minute mark. We got to go to
we already there?
Break.
Wow.
we go to a commercial break, and then we're going to fly through the rest of them.
Okay, so we're going to go to the commercial break, but I want to remind you to make sure you head on over to the show notes for this podcast episode, because we're linking directly to the free video. This is, if you want the full training, it's maybe a 7 or 8 minute video of you actually teaching this, Mike, the agree and repeat strategy.
I think it was in Hollywood, yeah.
And actually, no, the one we're sharing is a better version of the video. We shot it in the studio. It's awesome, and it's a free video. You'll probably want to share this with a lot of people and post it on Facebook and everything. It's
or keep it to yourself.
Free video. Hint, hint, we're also giving away a free course on the same page.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So with that said, I think it is now time for a word from our sponsors.
Tonight on the Alpha Male Network.
Good afternoon, sir. That's quite a rainstorm we're having, isn't it?
That sure is. I got soaked right through this Eiffel Tower commemorative beret.
Oh, I can see that. It looks good on you too, sir.
Thanks. I've always been the kind of guy who can wear berets and scarves with just about anything.
I can see that. So what can I get you to eat?
Also a plate of French fries, some French toast, and a glass of Bordeaux, please.
Coming right up. How would you like to pay, sir?
Just put it on this Visa. I don't have a lot of francs on me right now.
Sure thing. Here you go, Mr. Gomez. That'll be $9 even.
Thank you, garçon. And it's not Gomez. It's spelled Gomez, but it's pronounced Gourmet.
No problem. Gomez, Gourmet. What's the difference?
C'est ça. C'est la même chose.
Wait a minute. French fries, beret and scarf, garçon. Are you actually French, Mr. Gourmet?
I'm not sure. I might be.
Larry Gourmet, the man who might be French, tonight at 9:78 p.m. on the Left Eye Network.
Okay, now I want to get into a couple of really fast points. How to seem powerful. How to seem more assertive and powerful as a human. And one of the keys is move slowly.
Oh, this is
take up space. Take up more space. Remember in Las Vegas, you laughed about that?
Oh, yeah. I'll tell the story real quick. So, of course, the HypnoThoughts Live conference that we attend every year in Las Vegas, it is held at the Orleans Hotel, or at least it has been. And so I was standing in the buffet lineup, which is at the end of a long hallway. And at the other end of that hallway is the elevator bank. So Mike was a few minutes later than I was. I was already in line. I think it was waiting with Lisa or something. And from a very far distance away, I see this man, this figure just strutting his stuff down the hallway with his coffee in his hand and his elbow out far away, like so that no one's getting in this guy's way and spilling his coffee, walking like a pirate. And I saw you from a mile away. I said, there he is. There's Mike. I couldn't identify the shape of you or see your head or any facial features or anything. I just knew from the way that the shadow was walking that it was you.
Well, that's good. Thank you, Chris. And, you move slowly to seem more powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Move quickly to seem more young.
Mm-hmm.
That's the interesting thing. And you want to take up space. Amy Pataki did that wonderful TED Talk on this. And then there were a lot of supposed refutations from other scientists who could not replicate that you'd produce more testosterone by standing like Wonder Woman with your hands on your hips or whatever. But I still think those are valid things, these power poses. It's taking up space, standing powerfully.
Send signals of strength, right? And absolutely. I'll give the listeners a way to think about this. If somebody is jittery and kind of quick, it almost makes it seem nervous, like a nervous energy, and nervousness never comes across as confident, does it?
Right. No, it does not. And that's why we say, don't use motor mouth when you talk to someone. Don't talk fast. Don't sound nervous.
That's right.
That seems
slow it down.
It seems weak. And the real key that you'll notice, you'll see it in films, powerful gang members.
Oh, for sure.
Of all ilk. They take up space, they move slowly, and if someone asks them a question, they pause before they answer. They don't feel the need to fill that dead air. Pausing a bit before you answer is very, very powerful. And the weird thing is, making less eye contact actually makes you seem more powerful. Did you know that?
No, less
and
eye contact.
Here's the reason. People who want a lot of eye contact, people who are unsure of themselves, are constantly looking at the person to seeing how they're coming across. Am I making my point? Is he listening? Is he nodding? If you're not even checking you don't give a rip.
Yeah,
And
which
that's a
isn't going
very
to help you
interesting thing.
necessarily build rapport, but it'll certainly
Right.
give you a sense of power. I was also thinking when you were talking about crime bosses, any of these movies where, and because of course it's these movies are all well researched and done so well, but think about any time some bigwig crime guy is about to off somebody that's in his business network.
Yeah.
He starts off, friendly and sits him down for a nice meal. When his servant brings him a glass of wine, next thing you know, he gives a nod to the guy beside him who, does something very evil and the guy's dead. He's out of the movie. It's never some jittery argumentation. It's always just calm and collected. And next thing you know, the guy's dead. It's just
no heart rate going up. Yeah. I remember I told you I saw the great Texan race driver AJ Foyt on TV once. He was test driving this track that was wet and he's doing like 160 miles per hour or something. He almost loses it on a turn. And this guy's in his 50s. His pulse went up to like 62.
Yeah.
Like it just, no problem. That shows power. Now,
so if you want to be assertive, the rule is speak slowly.
Unlike what I just did. Yeah.
Make a balanced level of eye contact. Don't seem like you need the eye contact.
Yeah, we don't need
build rapport.
Detector.
Always do this on top of rapport. Treat rapport as the foundation of everything.
The glue that holds it together.
Now, I would say rapport and autonomy. By again, always bringing back that idea that when you reinforce someone else's autonomy, that's the Michael Pantalon instant influence principle number one. And if you do that with rapport, so rapport and reinforcing autonomy are principle number one. And then on top of that, you're being confident, you're taking up space, you're speaking at an appropriate volume and pacing, you're not seeming jittery and nervous. That's a great way. Learn how to say no that way.
Yeah. Request permission to speak.
Go for it.
Okay. Here's a few real quick posture things you can do that will make you seem more powerful. And this will help in your assertiveness. Remember, we're not trying to intimidate. We want to seem powerful. One of them is when you have your hand in your pocket, keep your thumb out. This is Joe Navarro. I presented with Joe Navarro in Hollywood, California at Lowe's. Amazing. Got an autographed copy of his book. Joe Navarro is former FBI. Incredible. So thumbs out of the pocket. The thumb becomes a surrogate penis. And it shows power.
It sounds funny, but...
I know, but sometimes it's just a thumb. Also, the Prince Charles pose. This is very interesting. Prince Charles is noted, as many of the royals do, when he walks with his hands clasped behind his back. That's an incredible power pose because your hands are not in front to protect your groin or your body. You're basically saying, I'm so powerful, I don't have to have my hands in front. In reality, he's got 5 British military bodyguards with him. So that's why it doesn't have to.
Exactly.
But your hands behind your back, the Prince Charles pose, that's another one. And steepling. When you want to seem authoritative, intelligent, staple your fingertips. So if you're talking or the other person is talking and you're listening, touch your fingertips together, your thumbs together in the form of a steeple, hold it up in front of you.
So your hands and your arm are making a triangle.
Yes.
With the tips of your fingers at the top of the triangle.
That's right. And speakers, I believe it was Joe Navarro said this too. He said, people who are professional speakers like me should do this frequently when they're talking. It sends and you do it, I know, it sends a message of competence and that you understand the material. I love watching Sherlock Holmes movies and the different Sherlock Holmes shows. You'll see that Holmes often does this. He's the authority. He knows how to do it. And I want to leave you with this, Chris, and we probably have to whip through it really quick. The red sneaker effect.
Oh, go for it. I want to hear this.
You don't know the red sneaker effect?
I think I might know what you're about to say, but I don't want to predict. So I'll tell you if I'll be honest about admitting right or wrong on this.
Okay. The red sneaker effect is a really interesting thing. It shows individuality for powerful people to show that they are different.
Correct.
You got it. So it's how Mark Zuckerberg gets away with wearing hoodies all the time.
Yes.
Because it's showing he's unique, he's an individual, he's different. And they say, wearing bright red sneakers with a suit is a statement of individuality.
Yeah,
and it shows power. This is Harvard Business School figured this out. It's
and
kind of
that
interesting.
Would probably be true of any standout feature in the way you dress. So if you wear a really shocking colored necktie, for example, in an environment where everyone else is wearing a standard type of navy blue tie or silver or whatever, and you wear some bright purple tie. Our friend Jason Lynette, he wears purple ties all the time, right? In an environment where not too many people do, stands out, looks confident.
Right. Well, that's it, buddy. I think we need to stop there because we've covered all the assertion stuff, all the important stuff, and we don't need to teach aggression.
I think you're right. We weren't meaning to teach it anyway. We wanted to encourage people to be assertive, learn how to say no, learn the agree and repeat technique. Go to the show notes where you'll find the link to the agree and repeat video. That is going to be one of your favorite freaking tools. I guarantee it. It's so awesome. So
Thanks,
with that, should we move on to that?
That's excellent. So why don't you take us, Chris, to the empowering question? We've got just one, but it's a good one.
All right. So now that I know that assertiveness can get me further in life, what will I do today to ensure I begin now to model and perfect some of these techniques?
Nice. Well read, buddy. Well read. Well, I'm going to give you the Meta 5. It's not a long one. Back a number of years ago, I had a bright silver Volvo 850 Turbo. Went like a bat out of hell, but a big solid car. And I had a hypnosis show in Coburg, Ontario, where you have relatives living.
Yes.
Well, it was at a Catholic high school. And I'm not Roman Catholic, but they had me in to do this event. I've done a lot of them over the years. I find the kids are generally very well behaved and very nice. Well, I got a call from the school. The principal warned me that a young woman, a girl, teenager who was attending that school was not Roman Catholic. She belonged to a very specific religious group, some would say rather cultic, and she was trying to stop me going to the school to do the show. Now, she was appealing on religious grounds, even though she wasn't of the same ilk as the school. And clearly, she could have voted with her feet and just not gone to the event. But no, she was determined to shut it down. Well, the Roman Catholic principal was a very nice man. And he phoned me up and he said, the things she's saying are slanderous. And I really recommend you follow up on this. And we're doing everything we can. But you know, the wheel that squeaks is the one that gets the oil. This girl succeeded in shutting down my event completely and it was canceled. So I was miffed because it was all based on me being, a child of Satan or something, which is ridiculous. Well, another school in Coburg that was not Roman Catholic picked up on it. And they heard about it, and their school council said, we're going to have him here. This girl doesn't go to this school. She has no clout here. So they ran the event. They were very nice to me as well. A nighttime show, packed it out. Everything was fantastic. Everything went perfectly. And on the way home, I had trouble with my car. I couldn't figure it out. It didn't feel right. The next day, I noticed I had 2 flat tires. Both the back tires were flat. And I took it into Ron Mitten Tires near here, had the tires checked, and someone had, while the show was on, gone to my car and driven nails into both the back tires. Now, the guy at the tire place said, do you realize they obviously didn't know this is a front-wheel drive car? They said, if they had put these nails in your front wheels instead, he said, you could have lost all control at 70 miles an hour on Highway 401. He said, you could have been killed. We had no way of tracing it back to this kid, who I'm sure is the one who did it. But it actually could be considered, according to police friends, attempted murder.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. This has been episode 152 of Brain Software with Mike Mandel, and I'm Chris Thompson. And I hope you got some real awesome stuff out of that and that you can apply everything you've heard to become more assertive in your life. And if you're looking for more, go to the show notes. Make sure you check out the show notes for podcast episode 152 on the website. You'll be able to find a link right there to the Agree and Repeat video training. And special news, there's a free course right now being offered on that page. So you will get to claim that as well. And it's awesome. So thanks again. And good night.
Now, Chris, I'm just springing this on you without warning. You know what I really, really miss? I think it would be nice if you just took us out with this. Could you just give us a little of your best freestyle chanting? I'm not even going to join in. I'm just going to enjoy it.
All right. Are we ready?
Yeah. Yeah. Hey. Yeah. The old ones are still the best.